Welcome back to my channel, guys. My name is James. I have a special treat for all the meat lovers out there. I have a super tasty and easy meatloaf that you can do in your own home. I'm also going to be making some roast potatoes, and then a little later in the video I'm going to be doing a sauce from this area as well in Catalina. Before we get going today, be sure to hit that like button as it helps with the algorithm on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So let's get started. To start the recipe off for the meatloaf, I'm going to be cutting the onions and garlic, and I'm going to saute them. I'm going to cut them very small, and you're going to cook them until they are clear. The reason why is because the onions have a lot of water in them, and I don't want that water in the meatloaf, otherwise it's not going to have a lot of flavor in it. Then I'm going to be adding what's called panade, and panade is a French technique where you take basically any old bread that you have, or any pieces that you don't want, like the ends. You put it in a bowl, any stale pieces. You're going to fill it up to the top with milk, and you're going to let it sit for about 10 minutes. After that, you're going to pour the rest of the milk out, and then you're going to mash it with a fork or whatever you have into a paste. We're going to add this to the meatloaf because normally when you cook a piece of meat like beef tenderloin or flank steak, you notice that when you cook it well done, the meat contracts. The reason why is when you add heat or temperature, the proteins will retract and then you will squeeze out the rest of the moisture that's in the meat. But when you're using ground meat, you have a lot of ligaments, tendons. They put that in the meat and everything's mashed together. So when you cook ground meat well done, it's basically like a rock, and the reason why is because all the proteins will literally squeeze out every piece of moisture in that. And this is why we're adding panade to that, to help give it more volume and a little more moisture, so it's not going to look like a brick when we take it out of the oven. I'm going to be adding 2 pounds of ground meat, about 1.5 pounds of beef, and then half a pound of pork. Pork gives a bit of a nicer texture to the meat. I'm also going to be adding 1 tablespoon of thyme and 1 tablespoon of oregano. If you want to put rosemary in, you can. It's very flexible. Then I'm going to be adding the onions and garlic that we cooked earlier, and a bit of salt. I'm also going to be adding 3 whole eggs, and about half of the panade that we mixed earlier. Now you're going to mix. If it needs a little more panade, then don't be afraid to add a little more. And again, mix it very well. Okay, once you have it mixed, now we're ready to put it in whatever pan that you're going to use. We're going to first place the bacon. Make sure that the oven is on, and now we're going to lay the bacon. You can start on the sides, and then we're going to overlap or underlap on each side. Okay, so if you want to put bacon in the pan, you're going to put it all the way around. You can layer it first on the bottom if you want, and then a few pieces on the side. The bacon that I have is not long enough, so I have to add a little extra. And then you can start adding the meatloaf. Alright, so when you're finished, make sure that you push down to make sure there are no air pockets inside, because you want to pack it in. It's going to shrink a little bit, and then we're going to start folding the rest of the bacon. Then you're going to put some tin foil on top. You're going to pop it in the oven at about 200 or 380 Fahrenheit, and you're going to keep an eye on it. It's going to take about an hour to cook, depending on how good your oven is. And while that's cooking, I'm going to make some roasted potatoes, and I'm going to make some samfaina. For the potatoes, you're just going to cut them in any shape that you like. I'm going to cut them lengthways and maybe in quarters. Put some salt, pepper, some olive oil as well, and any herbs that you like. Then I'm going to make some samfaina, and samfaina is a very typical recipe for a dish here in Catalonia. It's very close to me. It's closer to ratatouille, because ratatouille is from the south of France and Samfaina is from Catalonia, and they border each other. So for me, more or less, it's the same recipe. It's very easy to make. I'm gonna cut all the veg in mirepoix size, so more or less 1 centimeter by a centimeter. Okay, a quick way to cut the zucchini. You can take the top off. I'm only gonna use half of it. I'm gonna cut it in half. Now I'm gonna cut one side off, just so it doesn't roll. Now I'm going to slice more or less about 1 centimeter on the side, another one in the middle, and then a little bit, I'm going to cut just a little bit off on the side. Then you're going to stack it. You're going to cut once more, and again, you're going to make one more incision. Okay, now you can, final cut, you're going to line them up, you're going to make the last cut, and more or less you have perfect little squares, more or less. Right, so to make the samfaina, you're just going to saute the onions super quick. You're going to add the peppers, you're going to saute them, and then add the rest of the veg. You can add a bit of pimienton, just a little bit, and then you're going to add the tomato sauce, about 1/4 to half a can, because we're not going to make that much. And then you can just let it sit on the stove for about 10 to 12 minutes, or you can pop it in the oven. Then when the meatloaf is done, if you have bacon and you want to brown it, you're going to take it out, you're going to flip it over, and you're going to put it back in the oven on broil to give the top a little bit of color. And if you want to put a glaze on it, this would also be a good time to do that. I hope you liked the video, guys. Be sure to hit that like button down below and also to subscribe if you haven't done already. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon and take care.